All right, today we are talking about one of the top quarterback prospects in this year's and last year's draft, and that is Coleridge Cornelius Stroud IV, a.k.a. CJ Stroud. So, you probably didn't know he had that name. We didn't either. You've learned something already. Make sure you subscribe to the channel because you're learning things on here. Make sure you like the video. We're going to get in-depth today with CJ Stroud. We're going to talk about his skill set, his potential landing spots as he's projected to go pretty high in the NFL draft. And then how he's going to fit there, things like that, his college production, what we think he could do from a fantasy standpoint, all types of coverage. So let's get straight into it. So if you have listened to us, you know that I am probably the biggest CJ Stroud. Actually, I am definitely the biggest CJ Stroud fan among the three of us. I've always liked his film a lot. I've always liked watching him play. I watch a lot of Big Ten football, and so do these guys. So we are very familiar with CJ Stroud. I've always been the highest, so I'm going to wait until last to talk. I'm going to let you guys kind of give your thoughts on CJ Stroud. So let's start with his skill set and how you think that's going to translate into the NFL. So give us your breakdown on CJ Stroud.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, even leading up to this week, there was a little bit of a narrative that Stroud couldn't show up in big games, and he proved that wrong.
Throw that out the window.
Yeah, even with the loss, I mean, he blew it out of the water against an NFL defense, really. I mean, Georgia has incredible talent on their defense, and they have for several years now, and he was amazing. I mean, what was he? Oh, my, he didn't throw an interception. I know that. He had like 4 or 5 touchdowns, and really, he put on display, for like the first time out of any games I've watched him in, his ability to rush, because for some reason, as athletic as he is, that was hard to say.
Yep,
he doesn't rush very much, and that was something that was kind of worrisome. How he almost refused, as if like it'd been coached into him so hard, like don't panic and rush, don't panic, and he would not run even when it was there. And he really showed his ability to adjust on the fly, and when he was pressured, to actually pull that out and go and rush for 30 yards, even the last play of the game, really, to get him into field goal range. On top of that, he was very proficient in the passing game. So Nathan, I'll let you get into that.
Yeah, I mean, in the passing game, this is why it's been so hard in recent years to evaluate these Ohio State quarterbacks, and why the NFL has missed on some of them is because a guy like Haskins just doesn't pan out because he just was on such a loaded roster, a loaded team. You kind of expect these QBs to, at least from a statistical standpoint, do well because of Marvin Harrison Jr., Jackson Smith-Njigba, Emeka Egbuka, et cetera. Like, they'll just keep coming and coming and coming. They don't stop, these Ohio State wide receivers. With Stroud, like when we watched him, you had to put the Ohio State bias away, because there were so many things that he was doing this season and last that were just above any other quarterback before him, even Fields. And really, until Fields went off in the middle of the season this year, we assumed that he was a pretty big bust. Stroud, I think we would all say now that he's probably going to go top 5 in the NFL draft at least. And you have to give him credit. I mean, Simon and I said this is going to be a make or break thing. This game against Georgia is going to be make or break for his top 5 draft capital potentially. And he goes out there and puts 41 points on the Georgia defense, who allowed 15.9 points per game this year.
Wow.
They were in terms of points per game, they were the 5th best defense in the NFL. So, I mean, with that, you got to respect that. We understand he has the best receivers, NFL-level receivers in college, receivers that are more talented than any other core in college football, and yet he has just transcended that. He has somehow still stood out and been good enough to elevate himself and his team over really any doubters now. So I'm a fan of him. I would still prefer Bryce Young, personally, but at that point, it's just personal preference. Really, we have to let the draft capital speak for itself. If Stroud goes over Bryce Young, and that's still possible because of Bryce Young's size, I think I have to prefer CJ Stroud over Bryce Young. I have to prefer him over Will Levis, who's had a lot of offseason hype.
Yeah, and naturally here in this video, coming off of the weekend of the college football playoff, we've got Georgia on our mind, and we're talking about that game. Looking at the larger body of work here with CJ Stroud, He threw for, and again, I will preface by saying this here because I know this is what everybody is going to comment. You might as well just save your thumbs here. I know he has elite receivers. I know he had elite receivers last year. I mean, you're talking about Marvin Harrison Jr., who is probably, in my opinion, the best receiver in the country. You're talking about Egbuka. Like, I mean, he's going to be one of the top receiving prospects.
I'd say he'd be a first round receiver
in next year's class. And, looking at last year, he had Chris Olave, and he had Garrett Wilson, and not to mention he had JSN. I mean, the receivers, that is wide receiver U. I've always loved the wide receivers that come out of here. That is a given. So let's preface with that. Those receivers have to have somebody solid throwing to them still. I mean, even though they're making plays and they're making their quarterback better, their quarterback was making them better too. CJ Stroud, 3,600, almost 3,700 yards on the year. He had 41 touchdowns. That was first in college football. When you're thinking about how this could potentially translate to fantasy points, I mean, you're looking at the touchdowns here and you're like, oh my gosh, that is amazing. You're in a 6-point touchdown league, you're really, really drooling over CJ Stroud. And I think, for as much as CJ Stroud gets dogged for his processing in the pocket, for his reads, for going through his different options, I think 6 interceptions, I mean, that is not, given the 41-6 ratio touchdown to interception, given that has really not been a strong point of CJ Stroud's, acumen so far at this point in his career in terms of his reads, that is extremely good. I mean, 41-6 is just a number you look at and you are like, wow, this guy, he is throwing for a lot of yards. He's throwing for a lot of touchdowns. He, for the most part, is not giving the ball away. And then you're looking at his QBR and he's at 88.8, and that's second in college football this year. So with CJ Stroud, production-wise, he's looking very good at Ohio State. Again, very good team. Obviously, they had an amazing team this year. But he's 6'3", 218. The size, again, that's going to be his biggest selling point over Bryce Young. And again, I think Nathan said it exactly right. There is a non-zero chance that CJ Stroud could go the 101 because, CJ Stroud for the longest time, going into last offseason, was actually thought of to be the 101 in this year's draft class. Bryce Young has shown some intangibles this year and on the field in his decision-making and working under pressure and moving in the pocket that he has a ton of potential as well. And while the size is a concern, Bryce Young, you've seen him kind of slide up into that 101 spot, which I think is great. I like Bryce Young. I think they're both extremely good prospects here. I think you've got a really good option up here with either Stroud or Young. I think what was slightly unnecessary with Stroud was that he started to fall. And, I think part of that, was because I think people think that when one rises that the other one has to kind of just take a dramatic fall. When in reality, you're looking at what CJ Stroud did in the larger body of work over this year. He really had a good season. And, when I'm thinking of CJ Stroud, I'm still putting him up there with Bryce Young. I would not put a tier separation between them. I think Stroud offers different things, but in what he offers, he is very, very good at. I love his ball placement. I love his accuracy. He makes throws that only his receivers can catch. I mean, he's making NFL level throws fairly consistently. He's very good at hitting seam routes. Again, I think going through his reads is something he's going to need to work on. But with the arm strength and with the athleticism, although I've heard it, and this is my term, but I've heard this, he plays less athletic than he actually is. Although that has been the case, you saw what he is capable of against Georgia. I mean, if he plays like that, if he's aggressive, looking to get out of the pocket, being able to avoid pressure, being able to make those decisions, and then being able to run with the ball, I mean, if you're adding 30 to 40 yards of ground production to his already promising fantasy ceiling with the touchdowns and yards, the sky is the limit. I mean, in terms of dynasty, like even if CJ Stroud went at the 102 and Bryce Young at the 101 in the NFL draft, which is probably unlikely given the teams that are up there, if they're flip-flopped, you can't blame somebody for taking Stroud over Young, I think. I mean, I think it's going to be a personal preference thing, and I think you nailed that on the head. So what else do we have on CJ Stroud in terms of what he did, this year, and then talking about where he could be going in the NFL draft, what teams he'd be going to and how he's going to fit there. So.
Yeah, I mean, Just first, one more thing about the Georgia game is I think the biggest thing for me was that even after Marvin Harrison went out of the game, he continued to be proficient and not make mistakes. And that was really my biggest concern. We even discussed it before the game, is like, will he be able to get to his second and third reads when he's going, Kelly Ringo's in this game shadowing his best receiver, presumably, and will he be able to look past that and find those other reads? And he showed that he was able to do that in this game, and that was huge. we'd seen some inconsistent decision making from him, and he really, he obviously made no mistakes this year. Over the last 2 years, 85 touchdowns and 12 interceptions. So obviously a really good NFL prospect. And if he's going early first, the teams there right now that are looking for a quarterback are the Texans, the Colts, the Panthers,
Seattle. Seattle's getting Denver's pick.
Yeah, so Seattle.
Potentially the
who else?
Lions.
The Lions. Well, no, the Lions are 8-8 now.
Yeah, I don't.
But again,
they have the Rams pick.
Yeah, they do. They have the 6th pick. I mean, I don't think anybody's going to be floored if they take a quarterback. I mean, I don't. think we're looking
I just forgot they had that pick.
Atlanta Falcons at 7.
Yeah,
potentially the Raiders at 8 if they're looking to move out from the Carr era here. The Panthers at 9.
Yeah, a lot of those guys that are in the top 10 too, they can easily trade up with the Bears pick because we'd probably assume that the Bears aren't going to be drafting a quarterback.
Probably not. Should they? I think there's an argument there, but will they? I don't think that there is a chance that they do. So looking at the Texans, again, I don't think I'll be surprised if they take Stroud over Young here. I think we could hear that buzz and they could say, it's the size thing, and he's proven, production quarterback. In terms of the weapons, going from Ohio State to playing with the Texans' weapons is not exactly the smoothest transition I've ever heard of in my life.
No.
I mean, I think Nico Collins, I guess you could make an argument for John Mechie. We haven't seen him yet, but I think Nico Collins is probably the wide receiver one there. Mechie's obviously...
Brandon Cooks, but
I'm assuming Brandon Cooks is going to be traded here.
Yeah.
So, but that is a good point. So I'm assuming Brandon Cooks will be traded. So then you have Nico Collins, and then you have John Mechie, who is a good prospect and a very good college player. We'll just have to see if he comes back and hits it in full stride, which we're obviously hoping he does. And then tight end wise, still have Brevin Jordan there. He's not been super impressive. So
but he was a good high school prospect.
Yeah, we've heard that one, haven't we? We would really see what CJ Stroud was made of if he went to the Texans. And right now, at least for the last couple of years, obviously the Texans found their groove when they drafted Deshaun Watson and they started, competing for the AFC South and made the playoffs and would beat our Colts, which was really annoying. But right now, Simon likes to throw around the term poverty franchise. The Texans are scraping poverty franchise levels right now, and so while they are almost guaranteed they are completely guaranteed to take a quarterback here. It would be an interesting spot for a quarterback like Stroud, simply based on the transition of the weapons that he's going to in Houston. But
so what's the most ideal landing spot then?
Well, let's talk about Seattle. Yeah. So tell me what you like in Seattle, because I love Seattle for him.
Pairing Stroud with DK Metcalf is like a match made in heaven.
I would cry.
I think that's amazing. I would assume. Maybe I shouldn't assume this, but Seattle has 2 first-round picks. I would say they're either going to draft a receiver or get someone on defense because their defense has been horrible this year. They've had they've hit really well in the draft last year with some of their rookie defenders, but they need they need some more depth and some more talent on the defensive side of the ball. They could potentially grab a receiver in the 2nd round. There's plenty of those around. They could probably get one. I think there could be basically at least a few receivers available for Stroud where it's not really a step down. It's funny saying a step down from the talent at Ohio State and then he's going to the NFL. Is it a step down? Houston would be a step down from the talent that he had around him at Ohio State. With Seattle having DK, Lockett, and potentially another rookie receiver that they get in the 2nd round, 3rd round. That
solid
and Kenneth Walker. That's just awesome. I think that is a downside to Stroud is he has looked so good in college with these elite receivers that it's like, when you see the talent level of these quarterbacks in college, you're like, okay, what's their ceiling in the NFL? How can they improve in the NFL? Because the talent level is so much higher there. Well, with Stroud, it's like, how much can he get better? What really is his ceiling? Because he's probably going to have to take a step down from a talent perspective in the receiving core if he's going to go top 5.
Playing with 4 first-round wide receiver, draft.
It's ridiculous.
Crazy that he is, but
like if Bryce Young had the talent level at receiver that Stroud had this year, like where would Bryce Young be going?
Well, he did last year, and we saw what he did.
Yeah,
he
won the Heisman. So
but Jameson Williams.
I do think there was an even better spot than Seattle that popped out to me, and that would be the Detroit Lions at 4.
They got tons of weapons.
Because obviously they have one of the best O-lines in the NFL, and that is what he's accustomed to. And obviously, when you're a rookie quarterback coming into the league, a good O-line protecting you would be amazing. It's going to help your processing and your ability to even adjust to the game speed in the NFL. And on top of that, he would have Jamison Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown, DJ Chark, DeAndre Swift, and a plethora of weapons there. And that was the one that popped off the page. Like, to have the least amount of drop-off from college to the NFL seems like a brilliant landing spot.
I actually think I would agree with you there. I actually would think Detroit would be more ideal than Seattle. Again, both great weapons, both good situation, but the Lions, again, that offensive line looking like one of the best in the league, like that's scary.
I'd say they're the best,
and it would, so that would make it.
I'd say the Eagles are, but
with the same tier with the offensive line, with the level of receivers that they have. And a clear alpha in Amon-Ra St. Brown, that would probably make for the smoothest transition for him.
Yeah.
Whether or not I like him paired with Dan Campbell, I don't know. I mean, I think Jared Goff being a veteran has made a big difference in terms of how they've been able to kind of transition into this middle of the road trying to get in the playoffs team. I think him being experienced and having played with Sean McVay, and I think all those years with Sean McVay for Jared Goff really helped him develop. And so when I'm thinking about CJ Stroud and the things that he needs to get better at, that does scare me a little bit in terms of coaching and things like that. I'm looking down, and I think Pete Carroll would probably be a very good coaching situation for him. Who knows if I don't even want to talk about the Colts coaching situation. I mean, if it's Jeff Saturday, you don't even freaking know because he coached high school. But with the Colts, like the downside to the Colts is that their offensive line is the highest paid offensive line in the NFL, and they are simultaneously the worst offensive line in the NFL, which is just great general manager skills right there. But with the Colts as well, them having Jonathan Taylor is also a pretty, good thing for whoever comes in and plays quarterback there. They're going to have that threat on the ground. If they get somebody that can actually, move or throw, because we're not really used to that this year. I mean, you're looking at
the last 5 years.
I guess we're not. I mean, we're looking at somebody that can come into Indianapolis and be fairly productive. Now, they'd obviously have to bolster their offensive line for that quarterback to be safe back there. Their weapons, though, Jonathan Taylor. You have Michael Pittman. You've got Alec Pierce, who's very capable, and then you've got some solid tight ends in Jelani Woods, Mo Alley Cox, who aren't going to jump off the page from a fantasy standpoint, but are going to be solid options at least in the receiving games, especially as you've seen at times from Jelani Woods this year. That's definitely not the worst landing spot as well, but. Looking through all of these, I mean, I think it's pretty guaranteed that CJ Stroud goes in the first 8 picks here. Like, I mean, I don't...
First 8? Oh, yeah.
I'm not sure he makes it to the Panthers. I think if anybody... I'm not even sure Levis makes it that far, and we're going to talk on Levis, in another video this week. It's going to be interesting because I think you're going to have the Carolina Panthers potentially trade up here. I think you might have the Atlanta Falcons looking to trade up here, so this might get shifted around a little bit if the Colts feel threatened. I mean, if the Colts don't draft a quarterback, I mean, we're going to burn the city down. So they potentially might have to jump up to get the guy they're comfortable with. They, are in need of a franchise-saving quarterback here. Going to be interesting, but CJ Stroud is sure to get the draft capital. He is sure to, have that great resume coming in the NFL, and because of that, because of how he produces, and because of at least the athletic ability, which offers a little bit of rushing upside, you're looking at CJ Stroud potentially being a very productive fantasy quarterback in the future. So, with CJ Stroud, again, you're probably going to take him, anywhere from 2 to 5 in rookie drafts. And that's going to be a good pick. Taking a quarterback again, we play in 12-team Dynasty Superflex leagues. Taking a quarterback in the top 5 of a rookie draft in a Superflex league is a great pick, especially a quarterback with first-round draft capital, especially a quarterback with top 5 draft capital. I mean, they're guaranteed they're going to get multiple chances. They're going to have that big team investment. So
yeah, look at Zach Wilson being as bad as he is and still, for some reason, getting chances.
Yes,
yeah.
and they said he's going to get more. Yeah, so... Again, CJ Stroud, he's looking like a great prospect. Looks like he's going to be a great NFL player. It's going to be interesting to see how he develops in the NFL. But we really like him. I really like CJ Stroud. So I'm really excited to see where he goes. And it'll be interesting. So make sure you subscribe to the channel. We've got all kinds of new content coming out on these rookies, on this deep rookie class. We have started the Dynasty offseason now. So we've got to get into all these rookies. And again, this this is where you win Dynasty. This is where you really play and get an advantage to your league mates, just getting into these prospects, knowing them the best, knowing who to pick in your rookie drafts, and then getting that year-over-year success in your Dynasty league. So subscribe to the channel will help you do that. Make sure you like the video. As always, we appreciate you listening, and we'll see you later.